people are rightfully angry about what has happened.
Tonight, the slaughter in Uvalde has politicians squaring off in the debate over how to keep kids safe at school. This was the deadliest school shooting in Texas's history.
And today, more victims of this horrific shooting massacre have been identified. At this hour, half a dozen victims have now been ID'd. Their heartbroken parents confirming it's them. Uvalde is a tight-knit city of just under 16,000 with a majority Hispanic community. And today we learned from the governor of the school had an award ceremony for students hours before the shooter barricaded himself inside one classroom. Jason Miles is live in Uvalde tonight, where a vigil is planned. Jason, this is a community in mourning.
To say the least, Mia. Just imagine families looking at clothing, a favorite pet, maybe children's toys. They'll be constantly reminded of these young lives lost. We continue to learn more about the 19 elementary students violently killed in a school rampage that makes zero sense. All as two teachers who also died likely did their best to protect the kids in a hail of gunfire. The family of 9-year-old Ellie Garcia spoke with us today, sharing their memories of a girl who was looking forward to celebrating her 10th birthday in a couple of weeks. Meantime, parents of other students from Robb Elementary School feel the pain of those who've lost their children.
We have our own kids, and you send them to school, like everybody keeps saying, and you anticipate on seeing them at the end of the day, and unfortunately, a lot of these families didn't.
The message "Pray for Uvalde" is now up on business signs and elsewhere around town. And as we mentioned, a vigil is planned for later tonight in support of all of the people who need it. In fact, that vigil, we're told, set to get underway around 7 o'clock there in the distance behind me. This area was closed to the media earlier, now opened up, and we expect a pretty big crowd here this evening. Meantime, we've heard over the last hour or so, one of my colleagues at least spoke with the daughter of one of the two teachers killed in this, Mrs. Irma Garcia. They say they know in their heart that she tried to protect these kids and begged the shooter, they believe, not to hurt them. Reporting live in Uvalde, Jason Miles, KHOU 11 News.
All right, Jason, thank you. Emergency funds are being given to victims' families to help with funeral costs. There's also a link on KHOU.com for you to contribute to the official memorial fund set up for those families. Also, we're learning more about what the gunman was doing in the moments leading up to the shooting. Authorities say Salvador Ramos lived with his grandmother less than half a mile from the school.
Governor Abbott adding Ramos posted to Facebook before and after shooting his grandmother in the face. But Facebook's parent company Meta is clarifying the gunman sent private messages about the shooting. Investigative reporter Jeremy Rogowski has more on the investigation and how the suspected shooter got the guns he used. Jeremy?
Well, Mia, authorities say Ramos bought the weapons legally just last week, and the only clear warning of his plans came on social media only about a half an hour before the carnage.
In a trio of Facebook messages beginning around 11 Tuesday morning, Salvador Ramos, officials say, made his intentions known.
I'm going to shoot my grandmother. I shot my grandmother. I'm going to shoot an elementary school.
In his grandmother's truck, officials say, Ramos drove from her home towards the school and crashed the pickup in a nearby ditch, where a school resource officer briefly confronted the suspect before he went inside a back door.
He went down a hallway, turned right, then turned left, and there was two classrooms that were adjoining. And that's where the carnage began.
Authorities say a tactical team of local and federal officers arrived a short time later and stormed the classroom, killing the teenage gunman. They say he had legally purchased 2 AR-style rifles last week from a local sporting goods store, along with 375 rounds of ammunition, all after just turning 18.
We've also learned investigators found 7 30-round magazines inside the school, as well as a backpack with more ammo just outside the back entrance. And one more thing, investigators say Ramos was wearing a tactical vest, but Lenamia, he did not have body armor plates inside that vest at the time.
I tell you, as if he didn't cause enough loss and carnage it could have been so much worse with that kind of firepower.
Certainly so.
Yeah, all right, Jeremy, thank you for the update tonight. Also, a small memorial is growing outside the school for the victim's individual, as we told you earlier, is planned. That's about a half hour from now. Our Xavier Walton at the school tonight.
Xavier, it's a small community that is really hurting.
Len, Mia, you know what? The longer you stand here, the more devastating these stories truly do get. Earlier today, here's what we learned. We learned that a sheriff's deputy from Uvalde lost a daughter during this shooting. Now imagine rushing to the scene, active school shooter call, and ultimately it's your own daughter's death. Now that's one of the new tragic pieces of information we learned during Governor Greg Abbott's press conference, along with how the gunman entered the school through the back door. The gunman did post about shooting up a school on Facebook, like Jeremy mentioned, but less than 30 minutes before he actually carried out that shooting. This marks the second deadliest school shooting in American history.
One who shoots his grandmother in the face has to have evil in his heart. But it is far more evil for someone to gun down little kids. It is intolerable and it is unacceptable for us to have in the state anybody who would kill little kids in our schools.
And you could hear it there in Greg Abbott's voice. There was a wide range of emotions, raw, running high. Part of that, Democratic candidate for governor Beto O'Rourke was there. He was in the front row, stood up, made an announcement, and then kind of had this back and forth with state leaders, Len.
All right, Xavier, thank you. Former Congressman and gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke interrupting Governor Abbott this afternoon during a news conference about the shooting.
This is on you until you choose to do something different. This will continue to happen.
You heard people yelling back at O'Rourke. One of those people was Uvalde's mayor. O'Rourke was then escorted out of the room, but says the parents of the victims are owed action to prevent mass shootings.
I'm calling attention to this, and I'm asking all Texans of good conscience, and I could care less whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, to stand up right now for yourself, for your kids, for our families, and to stop the next shooting just like this one.
O'Rourke also called out the governor for being one of the scheduled speakers at the upcoming National Rifle Association, or NRA, Houston conference. It starts Friday. Gerald Harris is hearing more from gun lobbyists ahead of the event tonight. Gerald?
Yeah, the NRA is not canceling their convention slated for this weekend, despite calls for them to do so. Houston's Mayor Sylvester Turner also says the city would not be able to cancel the convention, citing legal issues, but questions why some Republican lawmakers are going to attend the event on the heels of one of the worst mass shootings in the history of Texas. So far, Governor Greg Abbott, Senator Ted Cruz, among other Texas Republican lawmakers, are slated to speak. But among those that have pulled out of appearing for various reasons are Senator John Cornyn, Representative Dan Crenshaw, and musical artist Don McLean. And we are now learning that former President Donald Trump will come to Houston to speak at the NRA convention this weekend. Back to you.
Bringing us up to speed on that. Thank you, Gerald.